Why do men still dream of dying for something? Why does the image of the warrior, the Spartan at Thermopylae, the samurai with his blade, the soldier charging into gunfire, still burn in our collective mind? It's not just about courage. It's about longing for meaning, for identity, for a test worthy of one's life. But here's the danger. The same ideal that can give a man purpose can also lead him to destruction. And sometimes he won't see the difference until it's too late. The idea of the hero is not an invention. It is an inheritance. It flows in the blood, carried across centuries of survival, war, and sacrifice. Carl Jung called it the hero archetype, an eternal image living inside the collective unconscious. It is the pattern of the one who leaves the safety of the village, confronts the darkness, and returns with something the world needs, but often at a terrible cost. From the beginning, human beings needed heroes, not as decoration for history books, but as a survival mechanism. Our ancestors told stories of the brave not simply to inspire, but to instruct, to show the young what courage looked like, what sacrifice demanded. A tribe with no warriors was a tribe with no future. And so the heroic image became sacred. For men, it begins in childhood. Long before they understand war, they are handed toy swords, action figures, and tales of battles won by men who never broke, never wept, never turned back. The boy absorbs the lesson without being told. To be a man is to be unbreakable. In his mind, manhood is forged in fire, and weakness is the enemy. But the real truth is more complicated. The ancient hero was not invincible. He was afraid. He doubted himself. He suffered. Yet in the stories, his humanity is often erased, replaced with the polished image of a flawless champion. And so the boy grows into a man chasing not the reality of courage, but its myth. In the myths, the monster is easy to see: a dragon, a giant, a beast lurking in the cave. But in the modern world, the monsters are harder to name. They take the form of loneliness, depression, purposelessness. They hide in the quiet moments when a man questions why he even exists. The hero archetype still demands the same journey: to leave the comfort of safety, to face what terrifies you, and to return changed. But today, that journey rarely involves swords or shields. It's fought in the mind, in the heart, in the unspoken battles of identity. And yet, the danger remains. Because the heroic ideal, if misunderstood, can become a trap. It can drive a man to measure his worth only by his victories, to see vulnerability as weakness, to destroy himself in the pursuit of an image that was never fully real. The boy who dreamed of being a hero becomes the man who cannot ask for help. The man who hides his wounds, thinking they make him less worthy. The man who mistakes self-destruction for bravery. The ancient stories gave us warriors who fought for their people. But they also gave us martyrs. Men who died for causes they barely understood, pulled forward by the current of expectation. Even today, that current is strong. The world still tells men, be the hero, carry the weight, never fall. But what if the true hero's journey is not about slaying the monster, but about confronting the shadow within? This is the unseen cost of the heroic ideal. When the archetype is taken too far, when it becomes the only definition of worth, the man risks losing not just his life, but himself. And yet, men still chase it, not because they are foolish, but because the call of the hero is also the call of meaning. It is a promise that life can be more than survival, that you can stand for something greater than yourself. In a modern world stripped of grand quests and noble battles, that promise becomes intoxicating. And it's why, even now, the image of the warrior still lives in the minds of men, not as a relic of the past, but as a heartbeat in the present. The hero may be thousands of years old, but in the mind of a man searching for purpose, he has never been more alive. If you want to understand the hero, you must walk the soil where he once lived. Not in imagination, but in the dust, the blood, and the silence that followed battle. You must see the societies that carved this archetype into the very bones of their men, until war was not just an act, but an identity. The Spartans, the samurai, two cultures separated by thousands of miles and centuries of time, yet bound together by the same idea, that a man's worth is measured by his readiness to die for something greater than himself. In the ancient Greek city-state of Sparta, life did not belong to the individual. It belonged to the state. From birth, the boy was inspected, his body examined, his strength measured. If he was deemed weak, he was left to the elements. If strong, his life would be shaped by a single, unshakable truth: you exist to serve Sparta. At the age of 7, he was taken from his family and placed into the agoge, a brutal system of training that stripped away comfort, sentiment, and individuality. He learned to fight, to endure hunger, to feel pain without complaint. He was taught that fear was not an obstacle to be avoided, but a companion to be mastered. For the Spartan, there was no separation between man and warrior. The armor was not something he wore, it was who he was. And when the Persians came to invade, it was 300 Spartans who stood in the narrow pass of Thermopylae, holding back an empire so that the rest of Greece could prepare for war. They fought knowing they would die. And they fought anyway. On the other side of the world, in feudal Japan, another warrior ideal was taking shape. The samurai lived by Bushido, the way of the warrior. It was not simply a code of combat, but a philosophy of life and death. Honor was everything. To live without honor was worse than death itself. From an early age, the samurai trained in martial arts, strategy, and the handling of weapons. But they also studied poetry, calligraphy, and philosophy. To be a warrior was not only to master the sword, but to master the self. In Bushido, courage did not mean recklessness. It meant acting rightly in the face of fear. It meant loyalty so deep that betrayal was unthinkable, discipline so absolute that personal desire was irrelevant. And when failure or dishonor struck, the samurai would perform seppuku, ritual suicide, to preserve the purity of their name. To modern ears, it may sound cold, even insane. But to them, it was liberation. To embrace death was to remove its power over you, to fight without hesitation, without fear of the inevitable. What binds the Spartan and the samurai is not the weapon they carried, but the spirit they embodied. Both lived in worlds where life was fragile and fleeting, where survival was not guaranteed, and where the community depended on the courage of its warriors. For them, heroism was not a personal choice. It was a duty so deep that it dissolved the line between self-preservation and self-sacrifice. And yet, here lies the paradox. The very same code that gave these men purpose could also consume them entirely. To be a Spartan or a samurai was to belong so completely to an ideal that there was little room left for the individual. You were not a man who fought. You were the fight itself. Why does this still matter? Because the echoes of these cultures still speak to men today. Even in our modern world, where the battlefield is far away and the enemy often invisible, the romantic image of the disciplined warrior still calls out. It tells the restless man, your life can be more than this. You can be more than this. But here is the quiet truth, the part rarely spoken in the myths. These warriors did not just live in glory. They lived in fear, in exhaustion, in the quiet sorrow of knowing that their humanity would always come second to the role they were born to play. The Spartan's laughter in the barracks, the samurai's quiet moment with his family, these moments existed, but history does not remember them. It remembers the battle. It remembers the sacrifice. And so the man who tries to follow in their footsteps today often forgets that the life of a warrior was not only hard, it was lonely. To study these cultures is to feel both awe and unease. Awe because of the unshakable strength of their convictions. Unease because of how much they gave up to maintain them. The Spartan's shield was heavy. The samurai's armor was suffocating. And yet, both wore them willingly, because without them, they believed they were nothing. Perhaps this is the greatest danger of heroic masculinity, that in striving to embody the ideal, a man may lose sight of the self beneath the armor. And when the armor is all you are, what happens when you must take it off? If the hero archetype is the story, biology is the ink. The courage of the Spartan, the discipline of the samurai, the restless hunger for challenge. These are not just cultural artifacts. They are also written in the body, in the quiet chemistry of blood and nerve. And to understand why men are drawn to danger, why they sometimes run toward the very thing that can destroy them, we must step into the strange intersection of biology and destiny. The hormone most often tied to masculinity is testosterone, and it is far older than civilization. It existed long before the first sword was forged, before the first wall was built. In every mammal, it whispers the same message. Compete, dominate, protect, reproduce. Higher levels of testosterone are linked to risk-taking, to aggression, to the willingness to challenge authority. It sharpens focus, fuels ambition, and pushes the body to move faster, strike harder, endure more. In the world of our ancestors, these traits were not optional. The man who hesitated in a hunt starved. The man who shrank from battle lost his land, his family, his life. But here is the complexity. Testosterone does not create violence. It amplifies intent. In the hands of a disciplined man, it becomes courage. In the hands of a reckless one, it becomes chaos. Modern neuroscience has uncovered something ancient warriors already knew instinctively. Men are acutely sensitive to status. Deep inside the brain lies the reward circuitry, a system designed to release dopamine when progress is made, when a challenge is met, when respect is earned. For a warrior in Sparta or feudal Japan, status meant survival. It meant a place in the phalanx or the clan. It meant your brothers would protect you, your enemies would fear you, and your family would be safe. In modern life, the battlefield has shifted, but the brain has not. The same circuits that once lit up after a victory in war now respond to promotions, athletic wins, even online validation. The system is ancient, but the environment is new, and sometimes dangerously mismatched. There is also the rush. When danger appears, the adrenal glands flood the body with adrenaline, sharpening senses, increasing strength, slowing the perception of time. For a brief moment, the man feels invincible. This is why the warrior's path has always been intoxicating. The battle state, what modern psychologists might call flow, gives a man a sense of clarity and purpose he may never feel elsewhere. In this state, doubt disappears. Every muscle, every breath, every thought is aligned toward a single aim: survive and win. But this clarity is addictive. The man who has tasted it may spend the rest of his life seeking it again, whether in combat, extreme sports, or dangerous decisions that bring him close to the edge. Courage is often misunderstood as the absence of fear. Biologically, that is impossible. Fear is an ancient survival mechanism, wired deep into the amygdala, the brain's alarm bell. What separates the warrior from the coward is not the absence of this alarm, but the ability to move forward while it is ringing. When a man faces fear repeatedly, his brain changes. The circuits that once triggered panic begin to respond with focus. This is why elite soldiers can walk toward gunfire without freezing. Their nervous systems have been rewired by training and repetition. But here lies another danger. In rewiring himself to suppress fear, the warrior may also suppress other emotions, compassion, vulnerability, empathy, until they are harder to reach. In becoming strong, he may also become distant. From an evolutionary perspective, the traits we now call heroic were once simply necessary. A man's ability to fight, to protect, to endure hardship directly determined whether his genes and his tribe would survive. Over tens of thousands of years, this shaped not only the body, but the mind. The restlessness that drives a man to climb mountains, to start wars, or to risk his life in a burning building is part of an ancient survival algorithm, one that evolution has not yet erased, even if the world around him has changed completely. Here is the tension. We live in an age where most men will never face battle, never defend a wall, never hold a weapon in defense of their home. And yet, the same biological machinery that drove the Spartans and samurais still hums beneath the surface. Without a true outlet, this energy seeks substitutes: competitive sports, corporate hierarchies, even video games. Some of these substitutes are harmless. Others twist the warrior drive into something destructive: gangs, reckless violence, self-sabotage. The body was built for the hunt, but the hunt is gone. And so the modern man hunts for meaning instead. Biology does not dictate destiny. Testosterone, adrenaline, the hunger for status, these are tools. They can build or they can destroy. They can create protectors or they can create predators. To understand the science of masculine drive is to strip away the myth and see the machinery beneath. It is to realize that the heroic impulse is not a magical gift, but a biological inheritance. One that must be understood, mastered, and given a purpose, or it will find one on its own. And that purpose may not be what you would choose. Every culture that has celebrated the warrior has also carried its ghosts. They are rarely spoken of in the victory songs, rarely carved into the stone monuments. But they are there, in the haunted eyes of those who returned, and in the silence of those who never truly came back. Behind the armor, there is always a body. Behind the body, there is always a mind. And the mind remembers everything. The Spartans at Thermopylae, the samurai returning from battle, the legionnaire marching back to Rome. We tell their stories as if they ended on the battlefield, in glory or in death. But what of the days after? What of the nights? The ancient world had no name for what we now call post-traumatic stress disorder. But they knew it existed. Greek historian Herodotus wrote of soldiers unable to fight after battle, trembling at the memory of war. In Japan, there were records of samurai who abandoned the sword entirely, seeking solace in monasteries, unable to bear the weight of what they had done or what they had seen. These men were not weak. They were simply human. Today, science can trace trauma in the brain. We know that extreme stress reshapes the amygdala, strengthens fear circuits, and can trap the nervous system in a permanent state of alertness. We know that cortisol, the body's stress hormone, can linger for years, keeping the body ready for a battle that has already ended. And yet, the cultural narrative of the hero leaves little room for these truths. The hero does not flinch. The hero does not cry. The hero moves forward, unshaken. So, when the man behind the armor feels the tremor in his hands, the nightmares in his sleep, the sudden rush of panic in a quiet room, he says nothing, because to speak of the wound feels like betraying the image. Here is the most dangerous part of the heroic ideal. It demands silence. From Sparta to feudal Japan to the modern military, men have been taught that suffering is to be endured alone. It is part of the job. It is the price you pay. But in warrior cultures, pain is rarely a doorway to growth. It is a burden to be hidden. And hidden pain festers. It becomes anger, addiction, withdrawal, or violence turned inward. For some, the real war begins when the fighting stops. They may leave the battlefield, but the battlefield does not leave them. Crowded streets feel like ambushes. Sudden noises trigger the body into fight or flight. And worst of all is the isolation, the feeling that no one who has not walked through fire could possibly understand. The samurai had a phrase, mano no aware, the deep awareness of the impermanence of things, often tinged with sadness. For many warriors, that sadness is not poetic. It is the weight of knowing that they have seen too much, lost too much, to ever return to who they once were. Trauma is not only personal, it can be inherited. Studies in epigenetics suggest that severe stress can leave chemical marks on DNA, potentially influencing the emotional responses of future generations. This means the wounds of war may echo far beyond the lifetime of the soldier. The grandson may feel the fear his grandfather never spoke of. The son may carry the anger of a father who could not explain why he was always distant. And so, the armor passes down, not just the stories of strength, but the silence of pain. To wear armor for too long is to forget the skin beneath it. Many men build their entire identity around being the protector, the fighter, the one who can handle anything. They are pillars in the eyes of others. But pillars do not bend, they break. When the mask of invincibility becomes the only face a man shows the world, he loses the ability to show his true one. And when the day comes that the weight is too much, there is no one there to catch him, because no one knew he was falling. Perhaps the greatest challenge for the modern man is not to fight harder, but to admit when the fight has cost too much. To take off the armor, even for a moment, and allow himself to be seen, not as the hero, but as the human. This is not weakness. It is, in many ways, a higher form of bravery, because it rejects the myth that strength means silence. It says, I have fought, I have endured, but I will not let the war take the rest of me. The hero archetype is powerful because it speaks to the part of us that wants to rise, to protect, to overcome. But behind every story of heroism is another story, quieter, heavier, and often untold. It is the story of the wounds carried home, the battles fought in the mind, the slow rebuilding of a self that has been torn apart. If this is true, then perhaps the real hero is not the one who never bleeds, but the one who finds a way to heal. The room is quiet now. The storm of thoughts that once churned like restless waves in your mind has calmed into a still lake. You are no longer the person who began this journey. Something inside you has shifted, not in the loud, revolutionary way we expect transformation to arrive, but in the subtle, almost imperceptible way that the seasons change. For so long, you may have chased the world as if it were running away from you. Every moment felt urgent. Every silence felt unbearable. Every pause was a threat, a reminder of all the things you were not yet, all the things you had not yet done. But somewhere along the way, between the breaths and the spaces between words, you began to realize something almost sacred. The world was never running away. It was standing still, waiting for you to slow down enough to see it. And becoming who you truly are has nothing to do with speed, or competition, or even certainty. It has everything to do with learning to dwell in the present moment without needing to own it, to change it, or to control it. You have walked through the noise of your own thoughts. You have stood at the edge of chaos. And now, you stand on the other side, where the air feels clearer and the horizon wider. If you listen closely, you can hear the quiet heartbeat of life itself. The laughter of children in the distance. The rustle of leaves in the evening wind. The sound of your own breathing, slow and steady, no longer in a race against time. This is not escape. This is not withdrawal. This is arrival. There is a peculiar paradox in peace. The moment you stop chasing it, it finds you. The more you demand it, the further it retreats. But when you sit in silence and allow the world to simply be, without needing it to make sense, without needing yourself to be more, the weight on your chest begins to lift. You start to see that your life was never meant to be an endless sprint. That the mind, like a river, cannot be forced to flow in straight lines. It will bend and twist. It will wander through forests and valleys, and it will sometimes disappear underground before re-emerging in the light. When you realize this, something extraordinary happens. Your sense of lack begins to dissolve. The constant need to compare, to compete, to be validated, it fades like morning fog. And in its place comes a deeper knowing, one that does not need to be proven or defended. You are not separate from the world you long for. You are not an outsider trying to earn your place. The sun begins to set now, casting long shadows across the floor. It is neither a sad ending nor a triumphant one. It is simply the day fulfilling its quiet promise to make way for night. You think back to all the moments you rushed through, all the conversations you half heard, all the days you treated as stepping stones to something better. And you realize that there was no better waiting on the other side. The moments you skipped were the very life you were looking for. The night arrives gently. The sky turns a deep, almost infinite shade of blue. You lie down not because you are exhausted, but because you understand now that rest is not a reward, it is a right. You close your eyes and hear your breath. The tide flows in. The tide flows out. Everything is exactly as it should be. From this place, you can look back at your life with new eyes. The mistakes are no longer chains, they are milestones. The losses are no longer voids, they are spaces where new light can enter. And the people who once hurt you are no longer ghosts. They are simply travelers who shared part of your road. The river has carried you here. And here, the river meets the ocean. Somewhere deep within, you understand. You will be carried again. Through storms, through drought, through days of laughter and nights of loneliness, you will flow on. Because you are not just a passenger on this journey. You are the current itself. In letting go, you have not lost anything. You have gained the freedom to breathe. The freedom to be. You open your eyes and the world greets you softly. The sun will rise again. The seasons will turn. And you will walk through them, not as someone chasing life, but as someone walking alongside it. You don't need to have the answers anymore. You don't need to keep the pace of a race you never signed up for. You can simply be. If this journey has touched something deep within you, if it has reminded you of the quiet truths that are so easy to forget, then I invite you to stay with me. Subscribe to this channel, not just for more words and stories, but for more moments like this. Moments that slow the world down. Moments that remind you who you really are. Because somewhere out there, in the noise and the rush, there's a part of you waiting to be found again. Let's find it together.